We're doing it a bit different today. We're doing a full virtual episode, so our first time being virtual. So I'm at home in Ipsy, Zahara's at home in Dearborn, and our guest today, Marshall, will be joining us from the Lansing area. So we're all a bit virtual right now, so bear with us as we're kind of adjusting to a new format today. And we're really excited to have Marshall coming on. Who we're just having some technical difficulties connecting with.
Mhm.
But we're excited to hear from him about a variety of topics today. We'll get to talk about the cooperative movement, the energy movement, some of updates from the Cannabis Caucus and the Michigan Freedom Coalition. So really excited to cover a whole variety of topics with Marshall today. But we're just working on getting him connected. So, Zahara, I'm going to turn it over to you for a second while I connect with Marshall.
Okay, well, hello everybody. Yeah, as Leah said, we kind of had to change things up because due to some circumstances, and we are all at home, virtual. Um, so Marshall, while we're waiting for Marshall to connect, so Marshall has been one of the organizers for the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition, and he recently got elected as the vice chair of the Cannabis Caucus. Oh, and here's Marshall. Well, thank you
All
so much,
right.
Marshall, for joining us today. Um, as we said, we talked a little bit about you, so we're just gonna dive right in with our first question. So, can you please introduce yourself and let us know how you first got involved in politics?
Yeah, thanks so much, Lee and Zara, for having me. Really a pleasure and an honor. My name is Marshall Clabeau. I'm a Lansing resident. I um, I first got into politics back in 2015. I was working with Clean Water Action to shut down Line 5 pipeline and to pass the original Clean Power Plan by Obama. That set Michigan's renewable energy standard 25% by 2020, I believe. So that was kind of my first intro, and then from there, just haven't really got out of it. You know, being in Lansing, you kind of get stuck in it.
So we've talked a lot about Line 5 here on our show, and that's really interesting to hear. That's kind of one of the big issues that got you started. I think, is that a No Line 5 shirt that you're wearing right now?
Oh yeah. I had to represent No
Yes!
Line 5 Oil Tunnel. Yep, that's
Excellent.
that's where everything
Perfect.
Love
stems from me.
Love to see it. Love to see it. Yeah, so for those of you that are watching, if you haven't caught on yet what Line 5 is, it is an oil pipeline that's running underneath the Straits of Mackinac, and it has been there for way over its easement, way over how long it was supposed to be. It's owned by a company named Enbridge that is responsible for the Kalamazoo River pipeline that was so devastating to that area. They're also involved in several other pipelines throughout the country, and it's just really something that is there's no excuse for it anymore. So we've talked a lot about working to shut it down, and we've actually met several activists like yourself, Marshall. We met with Shannon, who one of their big things that they got involved with was Line 5. And for me, pipelines were how I started showing up at protests and marches in Lansing. So um, I think that it shows just how powerful issues can be, and how much we can push together and work together to change these things. So thank you so much for sharing that. So what is it like living in Lansing in the heart of everything?
Oh, I love Lansing. It's a really unique community. We have a good culture of community. It's really rooted in the politics are it's interesting because everyone comes into Lansing and a lot of people just leave and go home, but there's still, a city of 100 plus thousand people here. And you got the university right next door, which is, world-class university, Michigan State. So I'm optimistic of where Lansing's going. It's on the upward trajectory for sure.
That's really interesting. That's really good to hear. So, one of the things that we did say about Marshall is the whole cooperative thing. So Marshall, do you mind explaining like what exactly is a cooperative and how does it function?
Yeah, so I love co-ops. I call myself a cooperative community and energy enthusiast. So there's all sorts of different cooperatives. Um, at the very root, cooperatives in their current form started in 1854 by the Rochdale Society of Equitable Pioneers. and they laid out 7 principles. I recommend, instead of me reading them all off, I recommend you just look them up. The 7th one is being concerned for community, and the first one being voluntary and open membership. So cooperatives are voluntary organizations. They're open to all people who are willing to accept responsibilities of what the cooperative stands for. And so I'm involved with a lot of different co-ops. I live in a co-op. I help run an energy co-op, Michigan Mosaic Energy Cooperative. That's where a lot of my time and energy goes. My housing co-op, I can kind of talk about that. That's kind of a unique way to live. And I've also helped start a food co-op here in Lansing. So I've been all over the board, but the day to day, we have a house cleaning day today. So if you hear the roommates in the back, that's why we're all together cleaning the house. But I live in a house called Rivendell. It's a 100-year-old house, been a co-op since 1975. And what it is it's 10 of us collectively come together to live in an intentional community. We share chores, we share cooking, and we own the house. So part of cooperatives are you are a member owner. You own like a stake in the business. So it's really a revolutionary way to run business, and people are working together rather, competitively.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. I mean, I didn't know like exactly how things function or what exactly how it operated. So that's cool to hear. How does one go about starting one, or if they're thinking of starting one?
Yeah. So you really just need to gather like-minded people, and so depending on what your mission wants to be, whether it's housing, food, energy, it can be daycare, it can be so many different things. It's really coming together and getting a business model together, trying to get a board of directors together, and try to get members, people to work together on projects. So the housing co-op, the way we do it is we have a $500 share, and what that does is that is your buy-in. But we worked a relationship out with our local credit union, MSU FCU. I served as an AmeriCorps Vista several years back with our co-op, and I helped form a relationship to where, um, oh, looks like can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're
Sorry.
good.
All right, I said just a connection issue. But so we have a relationship with our local credit union to where there's no barriers to entry. So if you can't pay the $500, you can still move in, and you're able to get a bank account with a really great credit union. So that's one way that we do the cooperative, and then we just pay monthly. It's called monthly dues. It's not rent because we're homeowners. So we pay. I'll say it transparently. That's what co-ops are about. But we pay $390 a month. We eat like 5 meals together, and that covers our utilities, our internet, all that. Part of that goes to
Wow.
the house, and then part of it goes to the co-op to fund our staff, like facilities, our executive director, our membership coordinator, things like that.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Leah, let's start a YDM co-op.
Yeah, I love I don't know if you know this, Marshall, or not, but my background is food cooperatives. So
Oh, very good.
I worked at the Ypsilanti Food Co-op for 4 years, and I did everything from cashier and coordinating up to being their member services director. And I think my favorite thing was we would do an education series, and I would get to give new members a tour of the co-op and tell them the history of it and the principles that you're talking about. And it was just always exciting to build on that community feeling that we had. The co-op you're referencing for the food co-op, is that the East Lansing co-op that they've been working
Yep.
on?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. That's right. So I was. It's called the East Side Lansing Food Co-op. I actually got a sticker on my computer now. It just came in the mail like last week.
Oh,
But
great.
yeah, we were a food co-op of 40 years, and our doors got shut down. Whole Foods kind of moved in across the street, quite literally,
Mm.
and within 2 years, the doors closed, and so we transitioned for 3-4 years now. But thanks to a partnership, a local, they're calling it like a community hub. It's called the Allen Neighborhood Center. They're gonna have healthcare, renewable energy, the food co-op. They have a food pantry every week. They have a farmers market every week in the summer. So it's really going to be a cool little place, and that's where the food co-ops.
Yeah, that's going to be super versatile. That's awesome.
So how exactly, like, what are the differences between it being a food co-op and one where you guys are all where it's like a housing? Is there a lot of differences in the way you guys operate, or how does it go?
Oh, I think we might have lost Marshall.
Were you able to hear me?
I was able to hear you. I think
Okay.
Marshall's frozen. I mean,
Un-
I would say I
unfreeze.
can, yeah, unfreeze Marshall. Well, while Marshall is frozen, as far as our food co-op goes, similar to what he was talking about, there's a buy-in for the food cooperative to be a member. So, oh, it looks like we lost Marshall. I'm sure he's gonna reconnect, guys. So, we'll keep going here. But so for the Ypsilanti Food Co-op, when you join up, it was $30 a year, and it's a $200 membership. So once you hit $200, you're a lifetime member, and you do get a
Okay.
discount at the cooperative, or you get dividend returns. That's usually the two models that food co-ops use, and that's kind of part of the incentive of becoming a member. But you also get a vote. So you get to vote for the board of directors. You get to vote on like the platform of the cooperative and the direction it's going in. And so it's also about like having a democratic process to represent people in a workforce.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, like I really loved my time in a food cooperative. I actually like really missed that job. It was a really cool place to be.
Okay,
And
I think he's reconnecting, isn't he?
All
yeah, I
right,
heard a
think
ding.
hopefully I'm back. I just turned
You
on the hotspot.
are.
Yes,
All right,
yeah,
sorry
you're
about
back.
that. We have super funky Wi-Fi. It's part of a benefit of living in a co-op.
Yeah. We were just talking about some of the differences maybe between a food cooperative and a housing cooperative. I was saying that for Ypsilanti Food Co-op, we had a membership buy-in, and it caps out at $200. That makes you a lifetime member. And then you get a vote for your board of directors, which is a big deal at the cooperative too, I know. Is that similar structure for the board of directors for a housing co-op?
Yep, similar structure. So we have 17 properties. I'm the board of director for our house. So there's 17 of us that make up the board of directors, and then we have it's called an executive committee in EC, and that's our president, our vice president of facilities, our vice president of membership, our vice president of education, and our vice president of finance. So that group
Wow.
is a governing body. There's the board, and then yeah, that's how we operate. And then one member, one vote. So if you're a member, everyone's elected throughout this process.
Mhm.
Okay.
So yeah, democracy is really embedded in co-ops. That's what I really love about it. That's what keeps me around.
Yeah, most definitely. I got really interested in like the governance and business model with cooperatives and just kind of like the possibilities we could have. I was telling Zahara earlier, I actually traveled to Europe to study their food cooperative systems and compare them to the United States and kind of do like a where are we failing, where are we succeeding, and like where do we need to go forward kind of look at things. But the cooperative model really just engages so many more people in what's going on in their day-to-day life, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. And it's still a niche thing, but it's growing. And there's a thing called the new economy movement, which I consider myself pretty ingrained in, and I really support a lot of the efforts of that new economy coalition. It's a really great group, and um, yeah, Black Socialists of America are doing really great work. DSA, all those kind of groups are working towards a more cooperative future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, most definitely. And I like that a lot of the groups are working towards the same goal.
Yep, that's what's kind of neat about the movement, I guess, is that there's an overarching everyone agrees to these principles, and everyone's moving towards that goal.
Yeah, and they're pretty inclusive things. Like Marshall had said, guys, I would really encourage you if you're listening to go look up the 7 cooperative principles. You can find them from a quick Google search. Or you can go check out either his cooperative or my cooperative that we were talking about. But they really are just rooted in community at the base of it, is what I feel like.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, so have you always been involved in cooperatives, or was that something that you found later on in life?
Oh, it all is hand in hand with me joining politics, really. So while working at Clean Water Action, I met a really great friend who I laugh whenever I talk about him just because he's our relationship's fun. His name is Scott Murto. And he's just a great person. He got me into mutual aid networks. So what
Hmm.
I would consider, a godfather of mutual aid network. He wrote, a lot of the things about mutualaidnetworks.org, all that, and dates back to Clean Water Action, us working together, and so that got me on a cooperative environmental path. And I well, I know we're going to talk about energy in a little bit, but um, I in 2015 I had a fellowship to investigate 100% renewable energy plan for Michigan. So I did that with the
Wow.
lens on mutual aid, farmers, and cooperative economy, and how we can transition our energy economy and way of life, like in that lens. That was my fellowship senior year.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, a lot of things that we still need to do about like the whole energy things and resources we use. So I mean, since you started like speaking about that, being somebody who is an energy enthusiast, can you explain as to what does it entail and how people can participate
Yeah,
in any of
definitely.
that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I geek out on energy, so definitely gotta get cut off. I'm an energy nerd. I learned there's this book that got me into it all that Scott introduced to me. It's called Limits to Growth, and it was a published report in like 1972 by the World of Rome, and it lays out the Earth's limits on a finite resource, just the pure resources that we have, and what trajectory we're on, and everything. The Club of Rome is what it's called, who published the report, and it's all very accurate, and it's damning, to look back at 1972. We're in 2021, we can't even pass a climate bill.
Mm.
It's literally 50 years ago we knew about these issues, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
all predicted just what they said. Um, but I consider myself an energy enthusiast, and what that means to me is, someone who is conscious about their energy. And I look at energy maybe a little different than some people. I look at it from a food and electricity standpoint. So, during my investigations of transitioning Michigan's energy, my website is mienergytransition.com. I really I noticed that at the root of both those things is the calorie. So our caloric intake is all the energy in the world. You can measure everything by calories, and so when you trace it back to the root, to eradicate a problem, you gotta dig the weed out at the root. I'm a farmer background. My great grandfather and grandfather were cherry farmers in Old Mission Peninsula, and so I
Mm.
understand farming and systems that like as a plant, and it all boils down to energy. Everything we do, our interactions, the world around us, it's all energy, and just being more conscious about those things. So you can go big, like buying solar panels. There's a lot of programs out there. Michigan Safes is a great program where you can basically get free solar panels. There's quite a bit of maybe bureaucracy to work through, but you can get funding, for zero interest funding, and it will pay itself back. Because with solar panels, there's savings baked in with the purchase. So it's a good investment that way. And a more easy way that everyone can get involved is from a food standpoint. Compost your scraps, get a little bucket with an opening lid, and just all your greens, everything, all your food, veggies, scraps, compost. And that's huge energy. Buying local food, trying not to buy things out of season. If
Mm-hmm.
we don't have strawberries in Michigan, well, maybe we shouldn't be eating strawberries, shipped in from Ecuador, or, things like that. Really trying to be conscious about those decisions is all something we can do, and makes a huge difference.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about with all of that stuff because it's sometimes there's a lot of things like we just get used to doing and you don't think about like any impact it has, um, or how it can have a more positive impact.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
very overwhelming, when you start looking at everything, but we got to start somewhere. So, those are easy ways. Turning the lights off, when you don't need them on. Things like paying attention to your energy bill, and insulating your house, like that's a huge thing. And just being conscious of your carbon footprint.
Which I feel
And
like is so hard to do sometimes, but like, some of the steps that you just suggested are pretty easy starting points, I think, for a lot of people.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like to think so, and even like starting a garden, that's a huge thing just to learn about all the whole process, and you'll really, I guarantee, almost everyone that starts a garden feels more, therapeutic, and reconnecting to the earth is big for my mental health, and so I encourage others to try it out, and just it's sometimes a lot easier than you think. Just
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the fact that that helps you reconnect to like mental health stuff, because that's something that we've been talking about a lot with other organizers, is like ways to take care of ourselves first, because it sounds like you do just as much, if not more, than what most other people on the show have done. So I'm sure that you're stretched thin sometimes, and so finding ways to reconnect and refill yourself is so important, and doing it in an energy conscious way is like a double like plus.
yeah, absolutely. And another way to get involved, those are what I consider, the hands-on approach. But
Mhm.
there's like the ethereal of pressuring our local politicians. We're diving into young politics here. I love, the show. It's always a fun show, and uh, to pressure our politicians on these issues is huge. Not very many of them are on our side. And so that's a whole avenue. If you can't do the other things, you can definitely call your politician and tell them to pass clean energy infrastructure and support clean energy things. And get involved locally. Almost every community has something going on. In Lansing, we have our mayor's sustainability commission, which I am on. Uh, we were just talking about this. I also serve as a board member of Great Lakes Renewable Energy Association, and I encourage everyone to get involved with that group. It's a great group. I mean, I learned so much every meeting. It's really kind of everyone in the industry of clean energy across Michigan is involved with GREA. It's a really, really great group, and always learning how to get involved at the local level across the state through them.
So what is the main focus of the clean energy group? Is it turning or educating people more about the use of clean energy, or is it to switch people to clean energy uses, or what exactly?
Yeah, so it's all the above, which is so great about it. It's we hold weekly solar stories to help educate people. We do a lot of lobbying in the legislature. We are made up of solar installers as well, so it's kind of like a one-stop shop. If you have a question on who to go to get something installed or how to install something, if you're curious about geothermal, we have a board member who does that. So it's really kind of all the above.
So one thing that I have heard from some people when talking about and I don't know enough about this, about like using solar and stuff, is that we have either, like, some people say it's too many cloudy days, or there's too many storms or something like that to depend on solar. So how do you explain to people how solar energy works exactly, and how it can be better utilized in places?
Yeah, I mean that's just not, those talking points just really aren't true. If you compare Michigan to, Arizona, yeah, there are cloudier days, but we still have plenty of sun to make it worth the investment. We're parallel with Germany, and a very, very large part of Germany's economy is powered by solar
Mhm.
energy. And so, I encourage people to look into that relationship geographically. And also, I think we're learning a lot about solar. Um, Sometimes it might be advantageous to not have the solar panels cooking in 100-degree Arizona sun all day. Like maybe our solar panels will take a little less wear and tear. And even in the winter, that's sometimes you can get some of your sunniest days in the winter. And there's new technology, that will reflect the sun in different places to really capture more of it. There's a lot of potential in Michigan. I'm always back to agriculture, but combining solar with agriculture really can help with grazing, livestock, shady areas. It gives the farmer, I always say, the farmers, have always fed America, so it's time to make the kilowatt hour part of the farmers, what they feed America with. So if we can change the way we look at farming, we can really, change the way we look at energy, I think.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I think like there's so many things that we underutilize that we can utilize for clean energy. And I mean, I know we're all guilty of it, but like we just got used to some of the stuff that we forget the impact it has, or the negative impact that it has on the planet and the future generations.
We got comfortable in some regards as a society and a culture. And people like to be comfortable, and when you start holding them accountable or reminding them about, the state of the environment, it makes them uncomfortable, and people don't like that, and they don't like change. So if you're telling them they have to change something they're doing, they're going to push back on you. But I think making, like you said, phone calls to your legislature or simple daily changes like a compost bucket, those are stepping stones that we can start presenting to people and then explaining to them the bigger picture.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's all hands on deck, it's a huge problem that we face. And so we got to change everywhere. Every corner of the world needs to be changed and root out the bad and, promote the good.
Yeah, I remember from when we had Andrew Nowicki, who was chair of the environmental caucus, like talking about how much of a negative impact a lot of the stuff that we do has on the planet, and how much things need to change. But I mean, like we say, it is difficult, so we have a lot more work to do to get a lot of those changes. Because I know one thing that a lot of like climate change deniers or people who don't think is that about this issue is that they say, well, they told us by this time we're not going to have a habitable planet anymore. Well, that's so, but we're still here, so that means all the stuff was a lie. But they don't realize how much effort behind the scenes and how much trying to work on like a lot of this stuff has helped and slowing down some of the process, but that we still have a really long way to go to heal our planet, basically.
Yeah, definitely. Heal ourselves, heal our planet. So, it's all connected. And, it's one of my, one of the organizing principles that I learned early on was that in climate organizing, at least, and I think it, is applicable to all organizing, is you really want to organize, people that are with you. You're not going to change a lot of those climate deniers' minds. So, you got to get the people that are with you together to make change, and naturally they'll come aboard. They'll see others doing it, they'll learn about it, they'll see that it works, and that's I think that's true.
Yeah, I think that's a
So
really good point. Is like you can't necessarily force some people, but you need to organize the people that are engaged and receptive.
And help educate the people that don't know, that are kind of in
Hmm.
the middle, that are indifferent, right? And so that's where I
Hmm.
think you want to spend. It's energy better spent.
okay. So one of the things that's really cool about the discussion about cannabis and hemp is that how versatile it is and how many different things it can be used for. So one of the things that I do talk about a lot to people is that we need to start turning more to utilizing hemp for its energy resources and turning it into plastic and things like that. Versus what we're doing, versus a lot of the resources that we are utilizing now. Is that something you guys is ever brought up in the cooperatives or in the energy field? And what do you think about that issue?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm glad we're talking about this. This is up my wheelhouse. I mean, hemp is, it's the fuel for the future. It's
Hmm.
everything you said: plastic, storage, clothing. It's one of the oldest textiles in the world, and it's unlimited. It restores the earth. So it's a regenerative agriculture practice. It restores the old earth. It will remediate poor soil into good soil, usable soil. So I'm very pro hemp. I think Michigan can lead the way too. We just legalized hemp not only less than 5 years ago, and I have a good friend that's a part of our cooperative that owns a hemp farm in Michigan here. So I've worked on his hemp farm, and we're working on getting our cooperative solar panels to the farm to help with some of the costs. But it's a huge potential. We don't have enough processing plants in Michigan yet, so we're really a long ways away. And
Hmm.
there's a lot of I think big oil is what fuels the plastics industry. So they
Hmm.
they are they're a tough foe, and so they've really suppressed hemp processing and hemp
Mhm.
research into what it can be used for. But hempcrete, that's another thing. It can replace concrete in a lot of ways to help suck carbon instead of emitting it. So it's a fascinating field, and the health benefits are just it's a medicine as well. So it's really a magic medicine.
Yeah, I mean, one thing when I do talk about like, a hemp is that like I tell people that it can be used, like growing it in places can be used to clean up toxins and things like that, but you can also use it to make durable plastic, but it's also biodegradable. So there's so many like different ways depending on how you want to utilize it and how you want to what you want to grow it for, that it's like we said, it's so versatile, that it has like endless possibilities, and it could take care of, I mean, it's not going to do away with a lot of the issues that we have ongoing with the planet as far as like how badly we've destroyed so many things of it, but it can be a big help if we start utilizing it right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Michigan can lead the way. We're the second most diverse agriculture state, and when hemp grows really well here. And so, I would love to see us unleash the hemp.
But let us not forget that we have so many big companies that will do anything to stop any communicate any like education or anything like that about this, especially in the oil industries.
Yep,
Um,
and including DTE and Consumers Energy, our two monopoly utilities. They are a
yeah,
formidable foe.
Mhm.
and then let's not forget, even though Enbridge is not a U.S. company, it is still one that has, as we know from trying to shut down Line 5, is still one that has a lot of influence
Mhm.
over
Yep,
here. So
absolutely. Politically too, they've spent, I think the last I saw like $23 million, or maybe it was like 60. I don't. I'm throwing out some random numbers, but I know it's north of 15 million in political influence across Michigan elections in recent
That's
years.
crazy.
wow.
And even look at like I would love, this is an interesting idea I just had. I would love to see a politicians ban Enbridge from advertising. Like, they control Michigan radio, so maybe we call on Michigan radio as an activist community, or pressure our politicians to have like companies like them, divest from Enbridge advertising that are spewing lies. Like, it's just not truth.
Well, I mean, and especially like once again, like I tell Leah, like I look a lot of at a lot of things as before being involved in politics and how I would have viewed them, and now knowing like a lot of the stuff, like how I view politics. When you look at the Enbridge commercials, if you didn't know what exactly they were, a lot of the commercials will be like, oh, like this company's cool, or this company is like, cares about like these issues or the planet. Like it has a lot of manipulating ways. That's the way I look at it. And Enbridge does do a really good job with their with commercialization of things.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well,
they're
remember they hired a PR person because they had to have someone start responding to the pushback they were getting. So like it comes back to that pushback, that conversation, that keeping pressure on people. Like it does do something.
yeah, they're dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean protesting them. I mean, is or just trying to educate people about them is interesting. I mean, I still remember it was like when we went to the Shut Down Line 5 event recently. Well, it's been a few months now, right, Leah?
It's been a month
I,
and a
it's
half, almost
been,
two.
yeah. I don't know where the time is going, but it was just it was like just seeing that big company right there and like thinking about everything it's done and knowing that they're I mean, like look at it, even though they got an eviction order, they're still operating regularly. Like that's how
Mhm.
much influence this company has.
Yeah, they're accountable to no one. It's crazy.
Which is pretty terrifying when we talk about trying to change like the energy sector, and then we see these examples of these companies running kind of like rampant.
Yeah, they just run rogue. Yeah, they just don't stop. I think and Whitmer really has done some strong actions, as well as Nestle. So yeah, we got a
Mhm.
big decision coming up in the next couple of weeks. Will be the big decision is whether um, the court case will be held federally or at the state level. If it's at the state level, we stand a really good chance. But it's federally, Enbridge is gonna really have a good chance to keep operating the pipeline.
Yeah, and once again, that's due to a lot of like monetary influence in so many different sectors of politics.
That's right.
So, what do you say to like people when, okay, let's say we shut down Line 5? For people who say, okay, that means our gas is either going to go up or we're not going to have enough like enough to be able to function without a different resource.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot of that's been debunked. So oil and water don't mix is a great coalition that puts out the stats and shows that it's just not true. We don't need Line 5. We don't need the propane that it provides for the UP. We can change our heating systems. We can ship propane in other ways, and so it's all just lies by Enbridge, and they've done a great job of I consider tricking people. I've gone door to door across the state trying to tell the right story, but you can only do so much on the ground. They're blasting the airways, putting up billboards across the state. It's a hard battle.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it has been really interesting learning so much about the whole clean energy movement and Enbridge, and the fact that it's been in our Great Lakes and caused I mean, I think like a lot of people know, but Michigan holds so much of the world's fresh water, and that's what will be damaged if anything else happens to the Enbridge pipelines. I mean, it's already caused so much damage, but water is one of the most like important resources, and that's what's going to be harmed the most with this, which will then affect the soil and it will affect the plants, because then the rain will become, all of that will be affected in some ways.
No, absolutely. It's all connected. Water table, water is life. Yeah, Mini Waukoni.
Yep.
Following our indigenous path. We need to protect the land, the water. It's all connected. Like you said, the soil. It's all that's all at risk. And Line 5 has already leaked over 1 million gallons. It's over 20 leaks have already been reported, and we know that. And so they, and like you already mentioned, the Kalamazoo River oil spill, that was Line 6B. It was 20 years newer than Line 5, but they say Line 5 is the old technology that won't break. So that's that's who we're trusting here. It was the second largest inland oil spill in U.S. history. So bad.
Yeah,
Bad
and that's the scary thing, is when it comes to starting to look at the track record of some of these companies, it seems very obvious to us, what the correct answer is, but then they get stuck in litigation and lawsuits and so on and so forth. And meanwhile, there's a ticking time bomb underneath the Great Lakes of Michigan. Like, it's really dangerous. And so, like, educating people, having these conversations, showing up at the press releases, showing up at the rallies is so important, so that we can continue putting pressure onto our electeds to do something about these environmental concerns.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we have come far, and more people knowing about the conversation and knowing about the need for this, but we still have, some ways to go, especially with the elected officials. I mean, I think a lot of the newer elected officials and the younger ones are much more in tune to the needs of the environment. Not to say that a lot of the older ones are not, but it's really like a lot of the newer ones, the younger ones that are more in tune and are champions for these issues, both in state and federal positions.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the entrenchment runs deep, right? It's just, it's an education thing, as a younger generation, you can see, you're going to be around to see the effects. And so we got to leave it better for, it's the, the native is, you're thinking 7 generations out, right? And so, that's how I like to think.
Yeah, like right now.
Goes ahead.
So I was saying, like right now, a lot of us are paying the price for the decisions that were made like 2-3 generations ago, and like that's what's gonna affect. Like, yes, we're still living. For any of the people that say, "Oh, well, we're still living on the planet and it hasn't," well, you got to think of like your future generation, how that's going to affect so much down the line, because we are right now dealing and paying for the consequences that 2 generations or whatever back did, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And I think about kids and young adults in the Sunrise Movement and people who are in Clean Water Action, and like they get it. And I think they get it because of exactly what you're saying, is like they want to leave something better. And if we don't do something about it, like you said, yeah, we're not at the red light yet, but we're getting really close to that red light, and we should be very uncomfortable with how close we are to it. But yeah, well, I guess like wow, what a great discussion about energy and the environment. And thank you so much for everything that you're doing, Marshall. I didn't realize you were involved in quite so many different groups.
Too many, too many. Yeah, I don't know. It's like 10 different renewable energy subcommittees right now. It's crazy, but
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
that's
all good.
craziness.
yeah, it's hard to step away from something and being involved in so many different things when it's an issue that you've come to care about. It's I mean, I have that issue sometimes with the whole cannabis movement, is it's hard to say no.
Yeah, you just can't turn away.
Yeah,
You can't unknow what you know. So it's like
Yeah, that's
keep
something
plugging
Sahad and
along.
I were just talking about, is like once you know, like you can't unknow it.
Yeah,
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 and you can't step away. It becomes very, it's like, okay, yes, I need a break. Yes, we need a break. Yes, we shouldn't be involved in anymore. But at the same time, how can you say no?
Mm.
yeah.
It's
Especially, I think, when we're talking about the environment, because it really is such a time sensitive issue that
mhm.
it's really hard to be like, I have to step back from this. But at the same time, like, we have to get better at putting ourselves first so that we can keep fighting, because burnout is all too frequent in an organizer's world.
Yeah, and cannabis will only go so far in helping us with all the anxiety and burnout. Um,
Yeah, just
well,
it
only
takes the edge off just a bit, right?
Definitely the people's medicine. Definitely.
Yeah,
yeah,
most
it'll
definitely.
just take us until it'll take us, get us until we get that break. But it's only so much it can do. I mean,
Yeah. Well, speaking
um,
about cannabis, Marshall, something else that we know you're really involved with, and the long list of things you're doing, is the cannabis and criminal justice reform efforts. And
Definitely.
we were wondering if you could explain a little bit about what you're involved in there. And a big congratulations to both of you on being elected recently as chair and vice chair of the MDP Cannabis Caucus. So I know that there's many projects that you could talk about, but we were just kind of curious if you could maybe give us sort of a brief overview of what you're involved in, and which criminal justice issues are the most important and prevalent to you right now.
yeah, and how does that all come into play with the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition?
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you to Zara, our president. She leading the charge, and Leah is secretary. Congrats to you as well. So
Thank you.
excited to work with you guys. I
You.
think we're really going to get a lot of great work done in the next year and beyond. So I am, involved in the cannabis space. I've been, been a medical patient for many years now. I grow my own cannabis. I know how the plant works, and it's a plant, right? It's a flower, and so it's crazy to me that people are still locked up in prison for cannabis. So the
Mm-hmm.
Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition exists to end that disparity in our society. People are making millions, billions of dollars in the Michigan legal cannabis industry that was really, it wasn't for people like me and you, or people of color. There's barely any people of color in it. There's no, I consider myself working class, poor people. None of us have shops. We weren't given licenses or permits to do the stuff. So, um, over, the last several years, really during Governor Whitmer's election, pressing her on criminal justice reform issues, cannabis is huge, right? I mean, how many people kind of get their foot in the prison door from cannabis? And it's a lot. And so, what we're learning, I mean, I've scrubbed thousands of prison records at this point and talked to a lot of prisoners, and there's a lot of people in for cannabis in Michigan. Nationally, there's a lot Last Prisoner Project, a great coalition member. They say 40,000 plus people nationally, and Michigan, we know there's a lot. We just got someone out this week, Trevor Miller. So congrats to
Mm-hmm.
all of us getting that work done. That feels really good when you get someone out. Gotten 3 people out now, and we're working on more. Um, there's the criminal justice system. It's depressing. That's
Mm-hmm.
I hate to go there, but it's the more you learn, it gets worse. Everywhere
Yep.
you go, you see MDOC and the delays that they do. They don't want people out. So right now, I'm talking to um, Terry is his name. He's in level 5 security for he sold 1 gram of weed. That's what and they sentenced him on 420. Like you can't make this stuff up, right? And so
Wow.
he can't get out of prison right now until he takes a drug rehabilitation class. But they don't even allow him to take the drug rehabilitation class in level 4 or level 5 prison. So like that's just like that's the craziness, right? So just to keep people locked up for something like cannabis is really it's inhumane, and the powers that be that continue it is inhumane. And so we're going to keep at it. We meet every week. I encourage people Mondays 6 p.m. We've been meeting steady for a year now, not very many Mondays off. We have a really powerful coalition, tons of people doing great work, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And as for what criminal justice reform issues really need to be focused on, the good time sentencing is huge. There's a good campaign going on right now called Good Time Makes Good Sense.
Mm-hmm.
Really support that through the leadership of Michael Thompson. I serve on the Michael Thompson Clemency Project board. Michael is the longest serving nonviolent offender in the state of Michigan history, incarcerated for 26 years over sale of cannabis in the 90s. He was basically sentenced to death. He had a 60-year sentence as a 50-year-old man. So, you do the math, and no one's living past 110 in prison, that's for sure. The health care is awful. He talks about how he needed a new hip for the last 20 years, and he got out and finally got a new hip, and it changed his world. The food is awful. I'm really trying to get MCFC on the prison food train reform, but it's hard because it's not directly related to cannabis, even though it affects our
Mm-hmm.
cannabis brothers and sisters behind bars. But
Mm-hmm.
it's atrocious. People don't, if you can't eat, you can't think. You're going to affect your mental, your physical well-being, and it's they put people in cages, and it's really not right. And so, good time makes good sense. The healthcare, the food, um, the felony murder. Michael Thompson talks about that a lot. A lot of people that are in prison for life right now are in on what's called felony murder. It sounds really bad, but oftentimes it's just wrong place, wrong time. There's a person named Horace Peterson we're trying to get out right now. Um, his case is he went to a party, he was on some drugs, ended up at the end of the night going with someone on a robbery. That person pulled the trigger, and now Horace has been in jail for 50 plus years. It's
Wow.
crazy. And so, he never pulled the trigger. He never meant to rob anyone. It's wrong time, wrong place. Any of us could end up in a situation like that, honestly. And so that fills the prisons up. Things like meth. You see a lot of meth in prison. MCFC doesn't talk about that. But I think we need to legalize all drugs. I'm working on writing a book to come out next May Day, hopefully, and I talk about the success of legalizing all drugs in other countries and hopefully in the United States soon to end the war on drugs, treat it as a health
Yeah.
issue, and
Yeah.
those are some of the big prison things. Felony murder. The good time makes good sense. Food, healthcare. Uh, the last one that Michael Thompson talks about that I'll share is called habitual offender, where
Mm-hmm.
this is where cannabis comes right into it, right? So Michael, he maybe had a charge or two before the cannabis crime, but they charged him with habitual offender, and they raided his house and charged him with a bunch of gun charges that weren't even related at all. So it was a political hit, really. But habitual offender, they'll arrest usually a person of color, but whoever, on a cannabis charge, and then they'll get you on a gun charge or whatever else that, they can stack on. And that's how they really get people trapped for many years, is you have these multiple charges that often just stem with something like cannabis. And so,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Wow.
and really, I mean, like, this is one of the things that Leah and I have talked with a lot of people and talked on the show is the need to legalize all drugs. It's most of the people that do get in trouble for drugs are people of color. That's one thing. And then the second thing is that a lot of the stuff that people end up in prison for needs to be treated more as a public health issue. I
Mhm.
mean, a lot of people end up in prison due to poverty. It's food and things like that. Like that's how they start. Like some of them is drugs, but a lot of the drugs that people start on is not drugs they get from the street. So there's a lot of stuff that
hmm
we have to address, as through criminal justice reform and just remaking a lot of the laws, um, because treating so many of these issues as public health issues versus criminal issues will help a lot of people.
yeah, it's huge. I mean, people use drugs for trauma, right?
Mhm.
You got to fill the trauma with a high. That's what gets you in. And so, and it's all, some of it's related to pharmaceuticals too, right? Like
Yeah.
the opioid crisis is real, and I'm doing tons of research on that, and it's, that's real bad too. People start out with something they got from their doctor, who was supposed to be a trusted person, do no harm, right? And they, once the opioids maybe don't work as well, or you can't refill your prescription, you move to street level drugs, and that's when the heroin and the meth kick in. And so in Michigan, we're the meth capital of the world right here. I don't know, people don't know that, but Berry County, Michigan, not far from my hometown, just south of Grand Rapids, meth capital of the world. We have a big meth problem, and it's mental health issues uh, that really are hand in hand. And you shouldn't be locking people up for that stuff. Like obviously, it runs deep, but it's all connected.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's something we oftentimes talk about on the show is how interconnected all these issues are. You talk about criminal justice reform, you talk about prison reform, you talk about mental health, you talk about healthcare. It's all so interconnected. So like we can't really address one without addressing the others. Um,
Yep,
and wow,
poverty and
way way
housing.
to way to give us a nice list. Like that was a really solid pointers and a lot of
Hmm.
really important things to be following. Not easy things to tackle overnight by any means, but definitely things that we're really thankful you're working on and others like you are working on because, for too long, especially those incarcerated, they've just been forgotten. And, those that are still incarcerated, those that are re entering society, they really need a support system. And so, like, a lot of the work that you're doing is that support system. And the good time legislation you talked about, Senator Irwin has introduced that bill. It's Senate Bill 649. And I'm getting tons of conversations with people that are so excited about this because Michigan's one of 6 states that doesn't offer good time, and that's just ridiculous. We shouldn't be in that position anymore. So all these things are things that are definitely important that need to be happening, and we're just really thankful that you're working on it with us. um,
Yeah, well, thank you. Appreciate it. I know you guys are in the fight too. So
yeah.
looking
Well, with
forward to
that,
the yeah, looking
sorry.
forward to the cannabis caucus really, leading the charge on some of these reform issues and electing progressive prosecutors. You see the work of Ellie and Carol Seaman and Victoria Burton Harris, and
Yeah, and
uplifting their work and helping get others like them elected.
Yeah.
and one of the big things that the caucus is focusing on right now is trying to diminish or get rid of these bills that, I mean, right now they are still in committee, but they could very well get up for a vote. And so one thing that we are is encouraging everybody to, as much as you can, contact your legislators. Um, especially the representatives right now, to let them know that House Bills 50, why am I saying it? 5300 to 5302 are really bad bills that are going to affect a lot for people that utilize cannabis.
Yeah, I mean those.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go on an hour about those house
Yeah.
bills. You know how they hurt caregivers and hurt patients, and recriminalize cannabis. I mean, how crazy is it that they want you to report all your grows to the police, and then the police
Mm-hmm.
have access. They have free range access to come make sure you're in compliance. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
and
That is
and
not
Well,
going to end well.
and
not
that's just one aspect of it, but you also have the whole thing about like how it's gonna do it's gonna do away with a lot of medicine for people. But we'll keep that. That's a really big discussion that we can keep on for a different show. But right now, Marshall, what are your parting words to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, parting words to Lee and Zara. Thank you for all your work. Keep up the great work. Really appreciate you asking me to be on today. And my parting words to the audience. Be well to yourselves, to your family, your friends, your community, the earth, and peace. Spread peace, spread love, and yeah, catch you on the other side.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Marshall, and for all the work that you're doing. What a great discussion covering so much stuff today. And we're definitely going to want to have you back on for updates on all the things that you're doing. And if you ever have anything that you want us to talk about or you need people at, please let us know. And we're happy to try to send people your way.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that. And yeah, thank you so much, and talk soon.
All right.
Yep.
Bye,
Talk
guys.
to you
Have a
soon.
great one.
Bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. See you
Yep.
guys next weekend.